All right, welcome everybody. I'm super excited to welcome Walter Bressler, great longtime friend of mine, really dynamic real estate coach, somebody that I've learned from for decades now. I always talk about the fact that he taught me my first script without even knowing it, and definitely owe this guy a lot of money because I made a lot of money from his efforts. So welcome, Wally. Thanks for being on.
I appreciate you having me here. That's a gracious way of telling everybody I'm old. Very kind of you.
Both of us.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having me here, man. Mhm.
Yeah. Super excited. So let's just get into a little bit of history about you.
Mhm.
And really what I want the goal of this to be is helping somebody who is maybe for the first time or just starting to get leads from us, from anybody else, to kind of get an understanding of like how to not suck at it.
Well, I think a lot of the people who get into the real estate industry itself don't realize what's required to be a successful real estate agent. I think you know that as well as anybody. And
Yeah, I sure
so,
didn't.
yeah, no, neither. I mean, I did only because I got hooked up with the right guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So my mentor knew what he was doing, and so I was fortunate that way. But it's how to not suck at it. It's like anything else. You got to practice. You got to be willing to do the work, right? You've got to be committed to practicing it and learning it, and then you've got to go ahead and take action,
Yeah.
right? You can role play your butt off, but until you get, we'll call it game speed, until you get on the phone and start calling and talking with people, I mean, nothing's going to change. So,
For sure. I was talking to an info marketing guy, prolific marketer, Perry Belcher, and he was talking
yeah.
about a study that they had done for a big national portal. I won't say the name,
Mhm.
but they were trying to understand why people didn't make the phone calls, even though they were paying a lot of money per lead, like hundreds of dollars per lead.
Yep.
And they were going in and they were trying to dissect why they didn't make the phone call. And he said what they found was that a lot of people would just prejudge the lead based on the name, things of that nature. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that that's part of it, but I don't think that's the biggest reason, quite honestly. 59% of all salespeople on the face of the planet have a very strong need to be liked and approved of.
Who are those
Okay.
other 41%?
Yeah. I mean,
They're the millionaires.
yeah. They're the people who have no problem picking up the phone and doing what they need to do. Yeah, but they're the successful people, right?
Yeah,
Now, just because somebody can pick up the phone doesn't guarantee their success because they still have to put in the time and the energy and the effort, right? But so roughly two out of every three salespeople has an issue with rejection. So yes, but you know what? Here's the thing: I find it makes more sense than if somebody's fears rejection that they're going to give themselves a legitimate reason to not get on the phone, and one of which could be analyzing the lead, looking at it, the lead, prejudging the lead. Does that make sense?
yeah, for sure.
Right. And so, we talk ourselves out of all kinds of things, right? That's procrastination, perfectionism. We'll look at any reason like, hey, I don't like when people cold call me. I feel like I'm bothering people. I don't like when people bother me. You know, the lead says the guy's name is, it ends in a vowel and it's all consonants other than that. And, they want $100,000 house. Right. So, so you can give yourself any excuse you want to get yourself the relief you need from the pain or the fear of the pressure of having to pick the phone up and call. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, how do you help somebody through that, right? Like, how do you get
Oof.
them past that?
So it's like 5 steps that I've kind of identified over time with anything. And let me take a step back here. Usually, the reason somebody has some sort of call reluctance issue is because they had some sort of trauma as a child. And
What?
yeah,
Really?
yeah. Mhm.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so what happens is being bullied, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, parents who are alcoholics who didn't pay attention to you, parents who fought all the time, parents who hit each other in front of you. Here's a big one: parents who never fought in front of each other. Like if you grew up in the Leave It to Beaver house, your parents did you no, did you like no, what's what I'm looking for here? No favors.
Favors.
Yeah, because as
So
soon as
how
you
does that manifest into call reluctance?
I'm on my way. So
Okay.
I'm on my way. So right, and what else? Things like you know, having somebody die, being really sick, unintended parents, all that stuff. So what happens is your brain has a very specific job. Its job is to keep you alive and keep you safe, right? But it's supposed to keep you safe from like petting a rattlesnake or stepping in front of an 80 mile an hour Mack truck, right? It's not supposed to protect you from rejection and sadness and all the and, all that other stuff, right? So, but what
Right.
happens is because we're so young when we get triggered by these events, that our brain steps in and says, okay, well that's scary. So we're going to stop letting ourselves be scared by those things, and we're going to start avoiding all the things that cause that fear, right? Fear of rejection, fear of not being approved of, fear of not being accepted, imposter syndrome, right? And
Right.
so what happens is it gets compounded over years, over decades. Now I'm 30, 40 years old, and I've been avoiding these things my whole life. I don't know that it's connected to that, but what happens is your subconscious has no clue if it's today or if it's 40 years ago. So anything that triggers that protection response today, your subconscious goes back how many ever years it is and says, "Oh, well, when we get scared, this is what we do. We avoid, we procrastinate, we're perfectionists." So, or drugs, alcohol, sex, pornography, cigarettes, like, and let's just avoid whatever that pain is. And so what happens is now I'm an adult. I've been avoiding conflict. I've been avoiding, confrontation. I've been avoiding things where I could get rejected my whole life. And now I go pick up the phone, and there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty on the other side of that, and that keeps me from picking up the phone.
That's wild. I was
Yeah,
watching Tony Robbins the other day, and he was talking about how 80% of your success is psychology and 20% is the tactic.
yeah,
And I was like, there's a lot of times where I found that to be true, but he started it out with like a punch in the nose. Like, if your business isn't where you want to be, it's just because it's your fault. You're the bottleneck. And I was like, ooh, I hate hearing that. He's
yeah.
probably right.
Truth be
Yeah.
told, yeah, that's hard to hear. And just basically, so usually, what does it for most people? It triggers their flight instinct, right?
Okay.
Some people, if their fight instinct gets triggered, like think about, when Frank Shamrock is, a UFC fighter trained by Ken Shamrock. His
Okay.
dad, his dad beat the crap out of him and his brother, and basically he fought his entire life like, "You're not going to hurt me, you're not going to hurt me," and he kicked people's butts for a living. You know what I'm saying? But most people who have call reluctance, they got, it was freeze or flight, and they basically just, took care of it and nurtured it and everything over so many years that, you know they'll judge these before they look at them. I can't do this because my scripts aren't great. Okay, or I don't have a presentation. What if I get an appointment, right? And so they'll use any excuse in the book to go ahead and get out of it.
So how do you rectify that?
Okay, so it's like it's five. I've identified five s- simple, not always easy, but simple steps. So the first thing is to resolve any problem, you have to basically be aware of what's causing the problem, right? And
Yep.
so when I tell people that, hey, this is what caused your call reluctance when you were a kid, they're like, no way. And then I talk to them for 5 or 10 minutes and like, oh my God, I didn't realize that. So I tell people, I'm like, look, just go get a couple of note cards and just write, what is it that's causing me to have call reluctance, or what is it that's causing me to procrastinate or be a perfectionist? And just take two note cards. And if you're a perfectionist, you can take a piece of paper and cut it in half. Okay, you don't need note cards. I
Yeah.
can't do the exercise. You don't have note cards, right? Cut it in half and just write that question at the top on both cards. Put one next to your bed and then keep one with you. And then what happens is, as you're going through the day, you're asking, hey, you're asking your subconscious, right? Your subconscious remembers everything you've ever tasted, touched, smelled, heard, or seen, right? Most people, it's a sandwich, so it takes a while, but it's going to start sending these things back to you. It's going to tell you, and you're going to get all these experiences. And now you know what the cause is, all right? And it's one of those things we talked about, a little bit more developed. But so now once I'm done, what I have to do is I really got to understand the emotion that comes up, because every emotion has a physiological response with it due to your nervous system, right? Right. And
Yep.
so, your sympathetic nervous system kicks in when it gets triggered. And so that's your fight or flight. And there's physical signs. Like, I suffered from anxiety from the age of 6 until about 51. Okay. And so I knew that when I was pushing my feet into the ground, or my back was getting, tingly, or other things forcing air out of my lungs, something was bothering me. But we get so used to going past that emotion that we just ignore it. But if I go and say, okay, you know, when I go to pick the phone up, there's a very specific feeling that comes up. The second thing is I got to let that feeling come up, right? Brain wants clarity, brain wants understanding, it wants peace, it wants, to be safe. So it's going to serve these things up to you, and you just got to let the emotions come up. But then you've got to work on what we call mindfulness, right? Because right now your brain thinks it's in charge, and it's not. It's not. It really is not. Your brain is not in charge of you. It's in charge of keeping you alive, but it's not in charge of you. And so we've got to go ahead and start working on some mindfulness, which is just focusing on the present, whether it's focusing on breathing or listening to an audio like mindfulness meditation, and basically teaching our brain that it's not in charge. not just like when bad things come up, but also prophylactically, like once or twice a day. But what happens is when an emotion comes up, instead of you falling prey to it, you going and becoming present. Basically, every time that happens, you're saying, "Hey, brain, we got this. We're not supposed to be afraid of this, right?" And then through the power of neuroplasticity, you basically rewire your brain. And you'll be shocked at how quickly it can happen if you do it consistently.
I practice things like that. Like I anchor states to
Yeah.
different things, you know. I mean, yeah, for me, I was thinking through, yeah, exactly. I was
Yep.
thinking through when I first started making calls to the leads that I had. I remember the first like, oh shit moment when I had leads and I
Mhm.
looked at them and I was like so excited that I had some leads and I was like, I don't know what to say to these people, you know?
Yep.
And then as I continue to work through that, what would always occur is just butterflies in the stomach, which I think is natural, you
Mhm.
know. For me, the way that I would overcome that would just be by being practiced up on what I was going to say, you know,
Right.
role playing, having the script. I would, even after decades of doing it, I would keep the script in front of me with me like a freaking security blankie, you
I,
know.
yeah.
Yeah.
I still do.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think it's a smart thing.
Yeah.
It's a roadmap to kind of meander back in the
Right.
conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the call reluctance you're talking about impacts about 18% of the people. I call that like syntax call reluctance, not knowing what to do, when to do it, how to do it. But through practice and a willingness to practice and get out there, you overcome it. The rest of it is literally an emotionally driven call reluctance. So now, look, you still have to do the things you're doing to overcome that call reluctance, but you got to get through the issues, right? So that third step is every time it's basically called awareness, define, identify, define, and then mindfulness. So, oh, there's that feeling again. Here's me tightening my chest. Okay, what is that? That's anxiety. Why is that anxiety? Because I knew as a little kid, I was told that I was worthless. I was told that I was no good. And so when I go to call people, I'm already afraid that they're going to say bad things about me. And I'm like, okay, that's where that's from. And then I do a little mindfulness, and eventually it'll just start passing, and eventually it'll stop altogether, right? I mean,
I
this
think go ahead.
I'm sorry, the same process that got you there is the same process that's going to get you out of there. Right? Your brain was wired, it was coded like CODED. It was coded a certain way because of the reinforcement it got of your belief systems. So we're basically using the same process. We're just doing it in reverse. We're saying, hey, brain, don't worry about this. We're safe. And if you do that enough, eventually the brain's going to be like, okay, I got you. And then, it goes away for good. Mhm.
That's so awesome, man. I think
Yep.
that you know, being able to muscle through that is probably the glass ceiling for so many agents, you
Yeah.
know?
Yep. I
Yeah.
mean, the thing is people give up too early on mindfulness because you know you have to figure you get your flight instinct or your freeze instinct triggered. Even your fight instinct, your brain goes on high alert for the rest of your life to protect you. Your brain's uber active, crazy active, trying to protect you, right? And so what happens is when you start doing mindfulness, your brain's like, screw you. Like, you're not in charge, I'm in charge, right? No
Right.
way. And so
Yeah.
it takes a while for you to grab control back, and a lot of people don't want to go the distance. For most people, it's 7, 8, 9 days. Some people it takes 2 weeks. Some people it's a little longer. I guess it depends upon how crazily things happen. But eventually, your brain has to yield because it's not in charge. Period.
Yeah, they call them flush pathways too. Like, you
Yeah,
know, whenever you learn a new habit, the last one in is the first one out, unless you reinforce it enough, you know? And
100%.
so,
Right.
yeah, yeah, that's really insightful.
Yep. Thank you. And so the next step is hey, listen, I've got to go ahead and rewire my brain now.
Yeah.
Okay, like I've got to rewire my brain. I like Hal Elrod's book, right? The Miracle Morning, right?
Yeah. That's a
Yeah,
good one.
it's a really good one, right? So, and here's the thing, little plug for Hal. Like he's got the savers, right? The savers. So he's got silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and then scribing or journaling, right? An
Mhm.
hour a day. Basically, what happens is now that we've started to clear some of the gunk that's been running around your head, you can go ahead and start working on these things, and you start rewiring your brain from the standpoint of what I'm saying to myself.
Yeah.
What am I reading? What kind of stuff am I putting into my brain? Like I'm journaling. Journaling is awesome because it gets everything out of your head and onto a piece of paper. You ever said
That
anything
removes
to
a lot of anxiety just in and of itself.
100% because your
Yeah.
brain can't process it when it's inside. You ever say something and look at somebody and say, "Did I just say that?"
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or for me, like, what did you say? You
yeah,
know?
right,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, if you start going, if your brain starts going, "Huh? Well, it's not good at all."
Right.
But yeah,
Well,
right.
I read somewhere that it's like having a bunch of browsers open on your computer, you
I've
know,
been there.
but you're trying to maintain all that processing power. So like
Mhm.
closing those things out, getting it down on paper
Yep,
helps a lot.
100%.
Yeah.
Right. Plus, you can't process it inside your head. I mean, as it is, we can't be our own coach, we can't be our own counselor, we can't be our own therapist because we don't have the external thought process necessary to get us to think a different way.
Right.
But by journaling, you can get things out on a piece of paper and look at it and process it and go, "Oh my God." Little tip, by the way, for people that get overwhelmed. I mean, your conscious mind can only process about 2 to 5 thoughts at any given time. You start getting more than that and you get really overwhelmed and you freak out. If you're ever overwhelmed, just take out a piece of paper and just start writing everything that's on your brain, personal, professional, romantic, health, whatever, and just write like a brain dump. You literally empty your brain. As soon as you're done, your brain goes, ah, right?
I keep a list, bro,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
got to do
yeah.
that all the time.
Right, but
Yeah.
so yeah, so what happens is then now your brain looks at it and you're like, okay, that's a one. I got to do that in the next day or two. That's a two. It can wait a week. And that's a three. It can wait a couple of weeks. And once you categorize and prioritize everything, that's when your brain goes ah. But if it thinks everything's a one priority, that's when you get a one. But I'm telling you, if you lit, oh, sorry about that. Camera's a little crazy here. If
Oh,
you
it's okay. Don't worry about it because it'll
okay,
be fine.
okay, if you dump that all onto a piece of paper, the minute you get it all out, your brain's going to go, thank you. And then as soon as you look at it and start prioritizing it, you can go and attack it. That's where we
Absolutely.
get overwhelmed. So
So, go ahead.
one other quick thing. So after we do those steps, the last thing is um I look at Daniel Pink's book, Drive,
Yep.
right? He talks about extrinsic motivators, cars, boats, houses, all that other stuff. He said that doesn't work for most people because it's either too big, too far away, doesn't happen fast enough, whatever it is, and so we give up. And he says, pain's an extrinsic motivator too, but sometimes the pain of change is so badly that people don't, so tough that people don't want to go through it, right? So what he says is, three things that will help you stay motivated towards your goal. Number one is autonomy. What does my life look like when I'm living the life that I want? Most people get into real estate for the three freedoms: time freedom, money freedom, location freedom, right? So basically, what does that look like when I'm living that life? Number two, what do I have to master along the way to make all that happen? One of which is managing my emotions. And lastly, what's your purpose? What's your why?
Yeah.
Okay. And so most people have trouble thinking about their why because a why requires you to look forward. A why requires you to believe that what's going to happen is going to happen for you. And if your brain's running around trying to protect you all the time, it's hard to think about what your why is. So anyway, so it's just awareness, global awareness, situational awareness, and then awareness, define, identify, and mindfulness. Then you got to rewire your brain and start putting the good stuff into it. And then you got to focus on, okay, what do I want? What do I need to learn, and then what's going to propel me to that? Okay, and so that's the process in that order. And if you do it and work through it, you're here's the good news: you're guaranteed to change. And if you don't do it, you're guaranteed to have it get worse on you because it doesn't go away on its own. It'll just
Yeah.
get it'll get
Yeah,
worse.
no, I love that. I was watching something the other day, and it said, essentially, if you want to become a millionaire, which is 1% of the population, you have to start to operate differently than 99% of other people. And what you're talking about is different than how most people operate, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And the thing is if you've lived with low self-esteem and low self-worth and imposter syndrome your whole life, like you're not even going to get your brain's not even going to give you a chance to think that you can do any of those things that are going to make you a millionaire. Does that make sense?
yeah,
It's just it's
100%.
it's beyond your brain's is beyond your brain's capabilities.
What's so interesting about this is how many things that I do that are so purposeful that follow this type of format and have for years, just because it's kind of what works for me. I've never heard anybody talk about these things in this way, as far as the mindfulness or journaling, or putting positives into your mind on a consistent basis. For me, I do it through affirmations, right? Like I read
Right,
them before I go to
right,
bed. I read them when
yeah,
I wake. I look at my goals every night before I go to bed. I look at my
mhm,
goals. We talked about that before. We share that in common, right? Like
right, right,
writing down how much money you want to make, looking at it every night when you go to bed, looking at it every morning when you wake up. We both had that happen where we made that amount of money,
mhm,
because our subconscious is pulling us towards those actions,
right,
things we need to
right,
learn,
right,
who we need to become. And I think that that's the most important thing is giving yourself the permission to become who you need to be
mhm.
along the way, because that's the fun part.
It is, but if you do not resolve this angst or this sadness or this anxiety or this fear, whatever it is, you'll never get there, right? And you'll
Right.
never ever get there because your brain is forever going to keep you from doing the things that are outside the scope of what's comfortable for you, right?
For sure.
keep you safe, keep you alive, keep you, well. And again, we have a negativity bias, right? There's a negativity bias. It's like it's basically it exists in the form of a reticular activator, which we've all heard of before, right?
Yep.
It's what allows gazelles to see lions. What's allows emus to see leopards, like that sort of thing, right? It allows us to not step in front of a train, right? So, but that negativity bias means that our brain is always looking for negativity. So it's up to us to go in and say, okay, this is what we're going to react to negatively, and everything else we're not going to react to negatively. And if you're not able to do that, then you got to go fix everything that's running on in the background so you can do that, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
look at the guy you are today. You're a multimillionaire. You've got multiple businesses, lots of properties. You know what I'm saying? But the guy that was first became a broker, in Missouri in the Ozarks, 25 years ago, whatever it was. Like the guy then with that mindset, what he had could not be the guy doing what you're doing today.
Absolutely. There's no way. Even if you drop me into it and the things that I've been able to achieve, I wouldn't have been able to handle it because I had to become somebody different along the way in a
Yeah.
positive way,
Mhm.
right? Like I don't think becoming somebody different is a bad thing. I think that,
Mhm. No,
improving yourself and your skills is the goal and that's the journey and that's the part to fall in love with, right?
but think of it this way, like that, and that's where we kind of circle back to the beginning again. It's like oh, sorry about that. No idea where that's coming from. It was me. I apologize. So here's the thing. Think of it as you get triggered, okay? And it's a trigger, right? You get triggered by something. And so your brain builds up this wall around you to protect you from getting triggered. And that same wall that's protecting you is also the same wall that's keeping you from moving forward and making changes, right?
Yep.
It's a wall. And the wall is there to
100%.
protect you originally, even though it's protecting you for things it doesn't need to protect you from. Then um, but it's also the same wall that keeps you from moving forward. And so, to your point, yeah, I mean, you've got to become a different person. You got to be willing to do that. But until you tear that wall down, so you can start moving forward, you'll never move forward. And unresolved. And it is for lack of better terminology, Mike. It's a mental health issue, right? I mean, it's not
Sure.
like schizophrenia or narcissism or sociopath. It's not that bad, but it is a mental health issue from the standpoint that your brain is causing you to not do things the way you want them to be done because of whatever's happening in the background, and that's ultimately your responsibility to fix.
What I found is as I broke down walls like that in the past, I'll find more.
Yeah,
The next wall, right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
and it's just it's like leveling up in a video game. It's a fun thing to work
yeah,
towards.
I liken it to I like the wall analogy. I liken it to like going up into the attic and looking at a bunch of boxes you haven't looked in a while. Oh, I forgot about that. I forgot about that. And then what happens is you take a box and another box pops up. Oh, I forgot about that, right? And so the boxes keep coming, right? So it's the same thing, right? Like just because you get rid of something big doesn't mean there's not a lot of other small things around there, right? Because you
Yeah,
got to figure your brain remembers everything
yeah,
that's ever happened to your brain. And it's interesting because we touch our face 125,000 times a year on average. Think about that. Your
which
brain remembers
explains a
every
lot of
time.
sickness.
What? Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Thank you. All right, but there'll be no COVID conversations today. Thank you. But the whole
right.
point is you see my point though. Remember, 125,000 times a year remembers every time you touched it. Your ability to recall it is different though, right? So there's so many things that our brain remembers, and because of the way we give credence to something and belief to it, something, then we always look at it that way. So look, I'm a big guy. Now, when I was younger, you could have said I was big, and I could have said I was big. I could have thought I was strong. I could have thought I was fat, right? But as soon as I assign a belief system to that, that's how I'm always going to look at it, right? And
Hmm.
so if you give a misguided belief or an internal, like if you create an internal identity about something that's negative, about something that really is a negative, it's still going to be a negative for you, which means that you have all these walls that you're building up, right? Every time somebody says something, oh, there's another wall, right?
Yep.
And right, you make these assertions, you ascertain things based on things you've used. So yeah, makes complete sense.
My
But
belief in identity when I would be making calls was if I didn't get them on the phone and get an appointment with them to be able to help them, they were going to fall into my competitor, which wasn't going to do as good of a job.
mhm, yep,
Yeah.
yeah, and a lot of it has to do with the way you're brought up too. You know what I'm saying? We both grew up in an Italian family.
Yep.
You know, I mean, most Italian families, the three means of communication are getting yelled at, getting hit, and food.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
that's
Yeah,
still my dad's joke today.
yeah,
When
right.
people are like, "Oh, you must be so proud of your son." "Oh yeah, child abuse works." I'm like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
yeah, right, exactly, right. So,
but it
literally,
does."
yeah, it does, but I'm saying it, and again, but it can screw you up too. The littlest things. I have a client I worked with. It was the littlest things. Like he was 10 years old. New kid moved into the neighborhood. He rode his bike over to see that kid every day for like 4 or 5 days. One day, his brother answered the door and said, "Hey, you don't have to come over here every day." Like that, he thought it was bothering him. And for the rest of his life, he didn't do things that he thought were going to bother people and could not pick up the phone from that, literally that like 10-second interaction,
Wow.
because that was the belief he created about it. And then his identity became internally became somebody if somebody doesn't want to bother people, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I
Because
think I think my competitive advantage, Wally, was that I made a lot of prank phone calls as a kid.
mm, I say that all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Did you too?
My brother and I used to blow up all the pizza joints and stuff like that.
Right?
I mean,
Yeah.
we had one thing that I just can't say here because it was dirty, but
You
we
tell me
yeah,
after the fun.
we used to torture the pizza places. Oh my god, absolutely.
What I realized through that is, like, they couldn't come through the phone and get me, right?
No.
So there was, like, no actual danger, you know? Yeah,
Yep.
so I
Mhm.
think that helps. Yeah,
I agree 100%. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, and again, it's the great news is, Mike, is you're not stuck with it.
right.
Doesn't
I
matter how
agree.
old you are. I've worked with 70-year-old people. I've worked with 22-year-old people. I've worked with men. I've worked with women. I've worked with black people, Asian people, white people. I mean, it doesn't really matter. If
Yeah.
you if you take the time to go through the process and address it, you can make it go away for good and change your life.
100%, and it will really change your income in the real estate business because
Period.
all of
Period.
our business is communicating and talking to other people that
Right.
are looking to buy or sell a house. So, like, if there's reluctance there,
Mhm.
it's going to be a huge bottleneck in
Yeah.
you becoming the best version of yourself and operating in really
Mhm.
the highest possible function that you can,
Mhm.
for yourself, for the people you care about, for your
Right.
community, right, for your
Mhm.
customers, all
Mhm.
of it.
And here
Uh,
and here and here's where it's the most powerful is if I, God forbid, and I'm not going to speak this into existence, but let's just say that your business just fell to the ground from one reason or another. It just fell apart. Something happened and you couldn't do your business anymore. You and I know that you could go ahead and, the next day you could be making money because you're not afraid to pick up the phone.
Without a doubt,
Nope,
like
it's
any
not gonna
type of yeah, with
yeah,
any type of skill that I can develop, like that's my security blanket, you
yeah,
know?
yep.
Yeah,
I've lost
100%.
everything. Yeah, I've lost everything 4 times due to bad
Yeah,
decision making and stuff like that, and every time I've came back bigger and better, and, now you're more resilient too, and so I think, that's the best thing you could ever give you ever give you the best gift you could ever give yourself is the ability to push through whatever problems there are to make things happen. And I get asked, like, I get interviewed, unfortunately, I get interviewed in a decent number of podcasts, and I'm grateful for you having me again, but people always ask me, like, "Hey, what's the one thing?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, there's just one thing that makes something like, how do you take one thing and make it like encompassing for somebody who's successful?" But I kind of figured it out. The difference between a Mike Odo and somebody else who is not successful is that both of you guys felt fear. It's just that you pushed through the fear and kept moving, right?
yeah,
Successful people and unsuccessful people both feel the fear. The successful people keep pushing forward despite the fear. So you just feel the fear and move on. And that's literally, in my opinion, the biggest difference.
that's amazing. You know,
Yep.
I always think of fight or flight, and for me, it's always fight. I don't know why. I don't
Yeah.
know where that comes from. I don't understand it. I yeah,
I
that's
could
that.
tell you if you wanted to answer some questions.
Yeah, please. Like, I would love to know.
I could tell you in 5 minutes.
Yeah, uh, that's fair.
Yeah, no,
I know we
seriously.
don't have that much
Yeah,
time,
no,
but
no. But I mean, you don't want to. I don't think you want to broadcast it on this anyway. But what I'm saying is,
okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Don't be putting my mail out there
yeah,
anyway.
yeah, yeah, I'm just
But
saying, like,
it
if you
is, it is,
like,
it's my
no, no,
MO. So I have
yeah,
trouble with the empathy on the flight side because I'm like, what are you doing? Get in
right,
there. You know?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It,
absolutely, yeah. So anyway, but it's the great thing is there's hope for you. And for people who are paralyzed by fear, and one year they sell 12 houses, one year they sell 4 houses, one year they sell 8 houses, one year they sell 2 houses. That inconsistency, that pain, it drives them crazy. And they're like, I wish I could get through this. I wish I could get through this. Well, that's the thing that's stopping you. That's the
that's
only thing
amazing.
that's stopping. That's the only thing that's stopping somebody is that programming from when they were a kid that literally was just came in to protect you. There's a great guy. The guy's a doctor. He's a counselor down in Florida. His name is Don Wood. Incredible guy. Incredible guy. he says something very interesting to me. And he says it on tape too. He says, "You know what?" He says, "There is no such thing as self sabotage." I go, "What?" He goes, "Yeah." He says, "Basically, when you put yourself in a position where you are pulling away from something that could be better for you," he says, "it's just your brain running to safety because it's scared, because it wants to protect you from the unknown." So you're not technically sabotaging anything. You're just protecting yourself. Now it
I
looks
like,
like right. It looks like self sabotage, but I mean, who technically wants to go ahead and blow good things up for themselves? Nobody, right?
yeah.
But your brain is like, oh, that's scary. That's change, or we don't deserve that, or whatever it is. And so your brain's like, okay, we're out of here. You know,
Yeah.
makes
That's
sense.
really interesting. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I like that a lot better than self-sabotage because I've
Yeah,
never been
yeah, because
yeah.
it's really disempowering.
I agree.
It's
Yeah.
really
Like
disempowering.
there's something defunct in me that I can't fix, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you're not actively like blowing things up. You're like your brain's like, well, anything like this has scared us in the past, so we just avoid scary things altogether. Right, right. It's true, right?
It is so true. It is. It is. Even right now for me, I stay in this warrior mode, right? Like this archetype of go go go, and it's a security spot for me, and so I'm working on that, right? Because
I
it's
like
not
editing.
where I need to be. It's not going to get me where I need to go,
Mhm,
and I revert back to that oftentimes because it's just what I know. It's
mhm.
something that's comfortable. It's something that served me well in the past, but it's also the next wall that I got to tear down to get to where I'm trying to
Okay.
get. Yeah,
Your dad was an entrepreneur while you were a child, right?
100%. Yeah,
The whole time, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so, what did your dad have to do? He had to
That
deliver, huh?
that yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
had to
I
do
spend
that.
a lot of time with my kids, and when they complain about me work, I'm like, "Oh, you have
Yeah.
no idea."
Yeah. But what I'm saying is you
Yeah,
want to know why you fight because that's what you spent your entire time around. You
100%.
you learned that. That's where that was learned from. You know what I'm saying?
That's
Was
insightful too. Yeah,
Yes,
that's amazing.
yeah, like, I mean, you figure around somebody who's fighting every day to keep the doors open and feed his family, so his
Yep.
words, whatever he was saying was in that vein, and so you learn that mentality right, so, and then I'm sure not every year was an amazing year for the Odo family at the restaurant. I'm sure
Yeah.
there were some tough years, and your dad's like, "I'm not giving up," you know what I'm saying? "We'll do this, we'll do that," right? And then and that's really where it all happens is, in addition, what our parents say to us, what they do in front of us, what they do to us, and then now look, here's the thing. You could have very easily gone into flight mode, you know what I'm saying? Seeing that your dad was struggling at one point or another with his business or whatever, or the fact that he was working this, 900 hours a week or whatever, you could have easily looked at and gone, oof, I don't want to, that's scary. This self-employed thing is scary, but because your dad probably was a fight guy himself, that's where you probably learned the instinct to fight. And so that's why you have it.
Yeah, he never shared anything negative. He always made everything look easy, but he was so driven, and his dad too. My grandfather, like, he would be
Mhm.
up doing push-ups at 5 in the morning, telling me to get my ass out of bed. And I'm like,
Like, dude, I'm 13. I need
right?
40 hours of sleep a
Take
day.
it easy, Grandpa.
I
Yeah,
need
but
I
it's
need 40
just you're
hours
right.
sleep a day.
It's
You
how
need to receive more sleep?
yeah, it's what I've seen, and so that's really insightful. I'm going to meditate on that for a bit.
Mhm.
Wally, I know that your time is limited, bro. I think
Uh-huh.
that you're on a path to help a lot of people.
Yeah.
If somebody's watching this and they want to learn more or be able to reach out to you, is there a mechanism, some way we
Yeah.
can
I
often
mean,
connect?
yeah, they can call me 214-334-1356, or they can email me Wally at triggersalesystem.com, triggersalesystem.com.
I
Either
love
way.
it.
Yeah, appreciate you.
Cameron is in the background saying Mike Jones.
Mike Jones. Who's Mike Jones?
Exactly. Hey,
No,
brother, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I'm going to
appreciate you.
call you and I'm going to go over more of that flight stuff because I
Yeah,
want to know.
absolutely with it. Absolutely. Take care, bro.
All right, bro. See you. Bye.